Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. We survived to 2023. We're here. It's a new year. Same us, I guess. Still talking about anime. For an opening bit, I was looking at the 2023 public domain list of things that are hitting public domain to see what I would want to have turned into an anime, and I realized the most notable things were like the 1927 sci-fi masterpiece Metropolis, which kind of already has an anime movie.
Okay, let me give you a pitch. Okay. Sherlock Holmes.
That was my other thing.
He's a dog.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to say Sherlock Holmes
in the 22nd century.
Yeah, the 22nd century.
Look,
hero, we did it again.
We all love undoubted masterpiece Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, but it's important we stay on medium here.
It's just important that every year of the GLORIO Chat, Iro and I find a way to shoehorn in Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century.
And Spider
We did it for 23.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
I think Riders.
I think it's like the rest of Sherlock Holmes hit public domain this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's allowed to be nice now.
God knows we've had enough Sherlock Holmes in anime already, and how's that worked out?
Mm-hmm.
But
Sherlock Holmes
anyway.
Good.
We will leave 2023 to later because we're going to take our last opportunity to talk about 2022 and our top 10 best anime asterisks of 2022 list, which we just put out. And it's an interesting one, which we'll get into in a minute. But
I always enjoy it when it's a little bit off kilter.
Yeah, we'll have some things to say, I'm sure. But to introduce everybody, go ahead, G.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that 2022 is a bit of an off-kilter year for anime, right? Like, I think there's a lot of very high-profile stuff, of course, right? I think there's been a lot of notable shows, but I think at least for our specific kind of corner of the internet and anime discourse, right? It's the lack of an obvious front runner for 2022 means that we end up with a much more kind of eclectic list because,
I feel like we all very much voted with our hearts on this one, which is good. I enjoy it. But to introduce everybody before we get into it, I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iro.
Still here. It's 2023, and I'm not dead yet.
Still alive in 2023. And we've got G.
What's good, everybody?
And we're joined by Zig.
Yes, welcome to the year of Luigi plus 10, a whole decade of Luigi.
Yeah, is it just officially every 10 years we make it the year of Luigi?
I mean, every year is the year
plus
of
10
Luigi
seems like a pretty good item.
Truly believe.
Oh, that's
yes,
true.
indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's the 10th. I got you. It's the 10th year of Luigi. That's fine.
Yes.
All right. Well, we've got our list of the 10 best shows here, which, like we mentioned, it's an interesting list. I think we did want to shout out a couple things that didn't make the list, perhaps some honorable mentions real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can just go around. I mean, Ira, did you have any you want to shout out that didn't make it?
I mean, first of all, of course, Lucifer and the Biz Camera got robbed by having a bad anime.
We got robbed.
That definitely does not deserve to be on the list, though.
I mean, Biscuit Hammer was robbed on a, metaphysical level.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm saying, fair. If this guy had a good anime, it would have been on here, probably.
Totally.
Yep.
But that's a sort of a fake answer. I would say maybe Mob Psycho season 3.
It took mine already. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can agree on things.
Yeah.
Like it wrapped everything up, and I think it was good.
Gee, you've got Mob Psycho as well.
I just think that. Again, I sort of noted this even in my own year in review post that Mob Psycho 3 is a more low-key season than season 2. But I think that considering the narrative material they had to work with, I think Bones did a truly excellent job of putting a cap on the story of Mob and that cast as a whole. I think that Mob Psycho 100 season 3, it just ends in a really good place. It finishes very gracefully, and I think that's just worth I think it's worth praising, especially in anime.
Very, very rare for that kind of show to get a satisfying ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah. I think they really pull it off. It's Bones doing what they've always done with Mob Psycho. They've just done it again. In a lot of ways, Mob Psycho 100 season 3 is it's just watching. I don't know, like a master, a master at work, right? It's obviously a lot of work and artistry and creativity went into it, but it is just kind of cool to watch someone just do a thing they're really damn good at for the third time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's, so yeah, shout outs to Mob Psycho. If I have my own pick, I guess, I don't know if it actually deserves to be in our top 10, but I just want to give a shout outs to Pop Team Epic 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is the there's been a lot of good anime comedies this year, but I think that is the one that in a lot of ways is the most reflective of how our senses of humor have evolved.
Yes,
over the last few
chaos.
Years. Yeah,
one thing you can always say about Pop Team Epic is nobody commits to the bit harder than they do. They will take every joke through to the logical endpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only one that might commit harder is Akiba Maid War, which we'll talk about later.
Wow.
Zig, did you want to mention any honorable mentions?
A couple of quick shout-outs. I wanted to shout out The Orbital Children, which technically came out this year, right at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a mess, but it's interesting and funny and charming and looks great, and I think everyone should watch it. It's not perfect, but I really liked it, and I would like to see more stuff like that, Yeah. And also, JoJo, Stone Ocean has been a very, very solid adaptation. It's been pretty kneecapped by Netflix's weird decision to release it in 3 separate chunks and kill all the bars. But
thanks, Netflix.
I haven't finished it yet, but I have laughed more at this piece, at this section, than anything since part 3, probably. There's been some really wacky, fun stuff, and it's been great generally. So
totally.
That's a case where the fact that it's been going so long and they have just been so reliably good kind of works against it for making a list, but it's still David Production doing the full JoJo thing, and it's really good.
Yeah.
I've definitely enjoyed part 6 a lot. As someone who, I say it every time, was a little cool on part 5.
Yeah.
I feel like 6, the thing I really love about 6 is it fully makes the transition from part 3's era of weird punch ghosts to the current form of how JoJo fights go, which are basically conditional mini games of death.
Yes.
Yes.
The fights are barely fights anymore at this point.
Yeah. It's basically just how can I rules lawyer my way into punching you once.
Right,
which was always kind of a thing.
Barely even punches people that much anymore. You know, it's
the punch is the reward for getting past the obstacles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just enjoy how weird and obtuse the rules of the game get. For example, the knowing that an invisible corpse has no concept of up or down, and therefore it can float and walk on the walls and ceilings. Because, of course, what are you, stupid?
Yeah.
Or just a Rocky. No, you go ahead.
No, just that weird tortured logic, and also the method of storytelling wherein it is very obvious that this week Araki read a magazine article on X, and now X is the enemy of the week.
God, that's exactly what I was about to get
Feng Shui, and
or this week I read the young adult novel Holes.
Yes. Or I saw Memento in theaters, and
All right, I'm gonna
This
have
week
to,
I went to Disneyland.
I'm gonna have to. Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to cut you guys off from
No,
naming every
you should,
bizarre
you should.
thing that happens in JoJo's
Suffice
Bizarre Adventure.
that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has many bizarre things.
Yes, but it sounds very fun. I'm just gonna shout out Call of the Night, which
Oh yeah,
I has stuck with me longer than I expected.
In a year of problematic waifus.
I mean,
Lady
Columbo will have that effect on you.
Yeah, I just we didn't really get to talk about the ending of it, I don't think, and it ended very well, which helped a lot. But like,
That's good.
I don't know, just that whole being a young person hanging out in the middle of the night, feeling that vibe,
wanting to be a vampire.
Yeah, makes me want to be a vampire. But
Yeah. Right.
that was good times. But yeah, we have 10 other shows on this list to talk about. So let's dive into that, and we'll start with perhaps a controversial number 10. Peter has selected Onipan, which they did talk about and also wrote about, and you can follow along at home. We have the top 10 post up at theglorioblog.com, so you can follow along and read our more expanded thoughts. We'll probably repeat some of the things here, but yeah, Onipan is basically a short kid show,
right?
It's like 5-minute episodes, but there's like 60 episodes of it or something.
I can't believe anybody would vote for a kids show.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's about
actually just for context. Actually, do we want to just like break down real quickly like how our top 10 is selected?
Yeah, sure. It's a weighted vote. Everybody has 5 votes from 1 to 5, and number 1 gets the most points, number 2 so and so, and we tally everything up. So it's a very simple system, weighted vote.
So
yeah, it's very simple. I just want to say it so people don't think like, oh, were these guys like arguing in a room for 6 hours until Onipan snuck its way into the top 10 or something.
So there is this is a mathematically determined list based on everyone's voting, and you vote something number 1, it gets more points. You vote something number 5, it gets less points, etc. I have a spreadsheet which I keep secret from everyone, and then we make a list. But that's how we kind of get things that if somebody is really wants something on the list, it'll make it on the list. Let's put it that way. But anyway,
yeah. I mean, one of the things I like about this system is that it does allow left field picks like this if people really want to push them through,
Right.
And I think that, or there's collusion, which is also valid. But, I think that, Onipan is a fun, weird, goofy little show, and obviously I think that resonated with Peter very deeply. Well, deeply might be a bit of an overstatement, but clearly they enjoyed it a great deal, and I think that putting something like this on, as well as some of the other stuff we've got, some of the more obviously high profile, is a good example of how diverse the output from the anime industry was this year. We got a lot of good, fun stuff on different levels of complexity, different levels of humor, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I did watch a couple of these because they're 5-minute episodes, right? I think it is most notably remembered for a mildly viral chase sequence because some of the animation is absolutely ridiculous, which adds to the fun.
It's with Studio, right? And
so the Attack on Titan people,
and so they're good at weird, like complex 3D movements through cities. Right?
Yes. Which we will see probably many times on this list.
Yes.
But yeah. So a good fun show to kick things off with, to say the least. But
congratulations to Onipan, number 10 on our 2022 Anime of the Year list.
Yes. All right. Let's go to number 9, which we have Kaguya-sama Love is War Ultra Romantic, which is season 3 of the anime.
I'm so glad this one still made the list.
Yeah, so, okay, just, brief synopsis. It's season 3, so I'm sure people know, but it to me, this is like the premier anime romantic comedy of the past several years.
Definitely.
It's it's a simple premise with the student council president and the vice president falling in love, but they don't want to admit it, and they're trying to force each other through increasingly elaborate ways to make the other one confess. But, you know, the show grows and evolves from there. It's got a great ensemble cast that kind of adds to the mix, and
everybody is either a dirtbag or a weirdo.
Yes, or both. Probably both. Yeah, I think I have a bone to pick, I think, with the rest of the GLORIO crew on this one being at number 9, because I think you all forgot how good this was.
No, okay, look.
I didn't watch it, so I recused myself.
All right. No, okay. I think I know who's picking a bone with, because I am the person who watched season 3 to completion, and I did not put it in my top 5.
No, you're not the only one, G. You're not the only one.
Okay, look, I had to fucking. Someone had to put Pop Team Epic 2 in their top 5. Okay,
I
someone
think.
Had to.
I also think perhaps some of us got caught up in the new hotness of Bocchi the Rock.
Yeah, look,
But
okay, so look, nobody is immune to recency bias. That is true, but I do think that, like, I think Kaguya-sama is great. I think, again, this is not a mark against it. Is this just a case similar to, like, JoJo, where Kaguya has become a little familiar? Like, even though the things that we love about Kaguya-sama is that it evolves the status quo and the jokes are fresh and they invent new bits every time. The fundamental framework of Kaguya-sama, I mean, this is season 3, man.
Yeah. No, I get it. I do think, because I went back and watched some clips before I made my final vote, and I'm like, oh yeah, this show, I would argue season 3 might still be the best season. Like,
it's really funny. Like the rap battle episode, the PS1 joke,
and, you know, if we're going to compare to Bocchi, I think I personally took more psychic damage from Ishigami's arc watching that than I did from watching Bocchi.
The fucking Ishigami.
Are we judging shows now based on how much they hurt you? Because
yes, absolutely,
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Jesus,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just the thing. I think I've said it multiple times. I know I said it when we were covering the show. As someone who didn't read the manga, I think I joked that, man, I can't wait till we enter the fucking Ishigami harem protagonist, you know, like, arc of Kaguya-sama. And I feel like the end of season 3 has basically guaranteed that is the, like, future trajectory of this show.
Yeah, or so it seems anyway, but
yeah, it's truly wild.
But no,
what's left to be done? They confessed. I mean, in a lot of ways, maybe Kaguya-sama should be higher up because they actually pulled it off, right? The payoff was worth
that big ending, the big payoff in the end, and they
totally nailed it.
Yeah, I think I just appreciate it. Kind of does a little bit of everything you want out of a comedy very well. Like it's like probably the most well-rounded of the comedies. Like, it's funny, of course. You know, it's
well made,
very well made. You know, the comedy can be relatable, and, you know, there's a little bit of plot in there, and, you know, it's just like a little bit of everything that they do really well.
Yeah,
and,
like it is a well-rounded hexagon stat grid.
Yes, it's got, yes. If we're gonna make our hex stats, yes,
it's got 4s and 5s across the board.
Right. So, just a solid pick overall. So yeah, I was surprised. I'm glad it made the list. You know, honestly, a lot of this list, the order is so chaotic. Like, you could reorder a lot of these, I think. But
sure,
it's on the list. We can talk about it.
I mean, I'm glad we can give it this shout out because we probably won't be able to next year when it gets a movie, and movies are always weird in how we include them in our end of year deliberations.
Yeah, how and when we can actually even see them, or right. But
yeah.
But yeah, the story will continue. They didn't. I don't remember if they actually said there would be another TV series. Right? They haven't said that yet, but definitely a movie.
I think Aqua, who is the one who has read the manga, has mentioned that there's enough material left over that one more movie wouldn't cover it all, basically.
Right.
Like you would need a movie and another season of TV to fully close the book on Kaguya-sama.
Right.
Sure.
So the war will continue in 2023.
Indeed.
All right. Let's move on to number 8.
Mm-hmm.
Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun. This is the sequel. This is season 2.
Yeah.
After, well, there's a season and a movie, which is the movie is actually relevant, right?
Yes.
To this.
And, the sequel to our 2017 anime of the year. It's worth pointing out.
Yes. Which is now at number 8. We've talked about, so Made in Abyss as I guess the quick summary. This is about this young girl and her robot friend going into this weird fantasy abyss place, right? And
big hole.
It's a very interesting mix of like very cute characters and very sinister things happening.
Yeah.
To say the least.
I wrote the wrap up on this, and I'll speak first, I guess, which is this is not as strong a season as the first season was, and I don't think it's as strong as the movie either. The story sort of meanders, and I think that there are some unfortunate creative choices, let's say. And also, it's just sort of really grim. And I think, a lot of the debate around this season was, is this the point where the show becomes so grim that watching it is actually more painful than enjoyable? And I don't think that's the case, but I think we're kind of getting close. But what I will say is that I still think it looks fantastic. It's an incredibly interesting, imaginative world that they're in, and it really is good at making you feel the things that are happening and have emotional reactions to the story and empathize with the characters on screen, and at the end of the day I think the scales are perhaps more even this time than they were in 2017, but I still think that this show overall is a good show, and I think that the good parts outweigh the bad parts.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think Made in Abyss has some of how do I put this? It's sort of permanently expanded my imagination space of what a fantastical setting can be like, right? It's it's so imaginative and evocative and strange and compelling, even when it gets gross or just directly upsetting. It often does it in a way that just is incredibly fascinating, right?
Right, because I think the thing that's important to note is that it's not even we're talking about how, oh man, Made in Abyss, it's so grim and whatever, but in the grand scheme of things, right, Made in Abyss is not even the most fucked up piece of media ever made, right? But it's important to note that every time we talk about it, we never treat most of its storytelling style as egregious or overly gratuitous, right? It is a gratuitous show, but as Zig generally alluded to, it balances out just evenly enough to justify the content it's showing.
I would say in the vast majority of cases that as G says, it's the use of be it violence or body horror or whatever is generally justified by the story they are trying to tell. We used the word gratuitous earlier. I don't think in the vast majority of cases it is gratuitous, because often the explicit content is connected directly to the story they're trying to tell. What's a problem is when it isn't connected, and that has become that is
It's still in there.
more obvious and more of a problem than it was in past seasons,
Right.
or past
Right.
season, I think, and this was already kind of a problem with the movie, which straight up has a couple of scenes of cold-blooded torture, which are not really
Right.
necessary. But I mean, look, this is the year of problematic failures. Right? This is a very problematic show that is.
Yeah.
It is like I said, it is a balancing act. For some people, it will not be for them. Artemis bowed out for entirely understandable reasons.
I also
Right.
tapped out.
And like,
Yeah.
I think we discussed this
Um,
plenty of times, like prior to the show airing, that like no shame in Mountain because it gets rough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely there are ways that it could mitigate and improve the way it chooses to deliver some of that content, and I think the fact that it does so more unevenly than in the past is the reason why it's not further up this list, but I still think it has great power, it has real emotional stakes, and as Ivo said, there's so much imagination, so much pure fantasy behind a lot of its storytelling. I still think it deserves a place on this list.
Totally. I mean, hell, Made in Abyss is the greatest argument I've ever seen in favor of the belief that, like, to make truly great creative work, you kind of have to be a fucked up little guy. Like, you kind of have to be a little, like, wrong in the head.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can go down this path.
To push out the boundaries of human imagination, you have to be not
exactly.
within them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, even as someone that tapped out on it, I still find it fascinating. Even from having watched the first season, it's just I feel like there is a cost to watching this anime, and you have to be willing to pay it or not.
Yeah.
So just your mileage may vary with that. All right, let's move along.
Yes, I was going to say this show might be the show here that has the lowest cost of entry. Like,
yes, polar opposite.
They both include children who are suffering under unimaginable burdens.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Except in one case it's cold-blooded torture, and in one case it's not being able to eat all the peanuts you want. So
yeah, number 7 we have Spy Family. Possibly the only show on this list that you could literally recommend to any human being on the planet.
It's the only show on here I could show to my mom.
Yeah. But yes, this is the super popular adaptation featuring the Forger family who live in totally not Cold War era Berlin.
Yes.
And they are putting on the appearance of a normal upper class family, but in reality, the dad is a spy, the mom is an assassin, and the daughter can read people's minds. And I guess the dog can see in the future.
The dog can see the future. Yeah, I was going to say.
So we have that now. And none of them know this. None of them know that the other people, other than Anya.
Well, no, Anya knows everything, right?
Yes,
like,
because she can read minds, so she knows everything. So hilarity ensues. Yeah, I mean, this is just like it's a neat kind of unique premise to set up a very just like chill show, right?
It is the most chill show featuring a hit woman as one of the main characters I've ever seen.
I mean, because like you could read that concept and you could interpret that a number of ways, and none of the story pops up occasionally. Some of the Lloyd or even more rarely Yours job occasionally pops up, but like most of the time it's sort of like
wacky hijinks,
wacky slice of life type hijinks set over this very interesting setting, right? And it's a lot of fun.
I think this is a great case of like this is a platonic adaptation in the sense of great source material, like really solid building blocks to work with, given to a studio that like just adapts it well, right? Like it's just they capture all of the best moments,
Yeah.
then they translate them to motion, and then occasionally they add their own like style and flourish to it. And I think mostly like Spy Family the anime is a perfect translation of the source material. It's just here you go.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
and honestly, sometimes I think this is proof that sometimes that's just enough, right?
Yes.
Like that can be enough to like get you into people's like to catch people's attention.
Right.
I
mean, a lot of adaptation is deciding like when to keep things the same and when to make things different, right? And
right.
In this is there's no need to change it. Let's just enhance it, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to like dismiss their work either, because as you know, as we found out this year with like other, you know, high profile adaptations, like it can be difficult to adapt humor, right? Like jokes require different approaches when being translated into motion, right? You have to think about timing, you have to think about vocal delivery. And I think Spy Family the anime has done such a good job of capturing like all of the source material's best moments, you know? Like I regularly went back to like past episodes because again, it's crazy to think that like Spy Family started this year, right? Like we made it through the entire like what 26, 24
spring and fall.
Yeah, like run in just this year, and like damn, it sure is funny when Anya punches Damien in the face.
Yeah,
on her first day of school.
Never gets old. Yeah,
never gets old. No, you know, damn that. But yeah, also, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say some really sterling vocal work from Anya's actress as well. Like she is just so like those blithe, like from the mouths of babes statements are extremely good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just a wholesome, good old comedy, family comedy.
Very charming show. Yeah. And it introduced the wider world as a whole to your Forger. You know, literally, 2022's waifu of the year, probably. Like, you know,
I think, perhaps to the general public, but
I mean, I'm just saying in aggregate.
Yeah.
All right, look, we all have our own particular dogs in this race, but like, you know, if we're talking about as a whole, right, like.
Yeah,
I'm just saying Yor is 2022's like 2B, you know, like the anime girl who got, you know, the metric shit ton of fan art.
I walk in the mornings, you know, and there's one car that has a Hinata from Naruto bumper sticker or whatever.
Oh,
and like
excellent.
So I would see that car, and then once the second half of Spy Family started, I was walking one morning, and in addition to the Hinata from Naruto sticker was a Your Forger in a bunny suit sticker on that car.
Hell yeah!
And I thought that
truly the bellwether of
that was really funny.
The bellwether of public opinion has turned.
I thought it was really funny when I saw that, and I was like, "Oh,
no, that's very good. I love that.
Truly a person of culture."
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, G. It's been a strong year for problematic waifus, but
oh, I know. Believe me, I truly understand.
Yeah. If you want the safe pick, though, yes, yours at the top. But yeah. But yeah, it's a fun show. Needless to say. All right.
Fun shows.
Speaking of fun shows.
Speaking of the good times.
I feel like from this point on, we're getting into. I feel like almost all of our top shows are things like we did not see coming. Like even our number one, we were not expecting that to be good, right? But like,
there's always some surprises, and like we value those a lot because we've been in the game for a long time, right?
Yeah.
But like,
So I think all of us here are, you know, to varying degrees, right, desperate for novelty.
Yeah. So starting with number 6, we have Bocchi the Rock. I don't even remember if we did a first look for it.
I think we all like
think we did.
Like it was completely
we saw like pre-release stuff and it was just like, oh, another K-On clone. out the window with you.
So
go ahead.
I've not watched this show, and I only know about it through like third hand. Is this just K-On, but they all drink and have depression? Like,
No.
Oh, they actually play music.
okay, but they did that. They did that in
It's a little more
the band stuff is like the band stuff is actually like the main plot, unlike KO.
Sure, okay, yeah.
It is the primary driver of every almost
there's
every
no
episode.
there's very rare like them hanging out at school type episodes, right? It's almost all like related
to
the band or like management of the band, right?
All right, that's a refreshing change.
Yeah, Bocchi was, I mean, like, all I remember about, like, the start of fall season with Bocchi is, like, it was sort of a Rage of Bahamut situation.
Word of mouth.
It starts out it starts out as, like, leaks from the ceiling, right? Like, a couple drops hit your Twitter feed of people being like, you need to watch Bocchi the Rock.
It took me like 3 or 4 weeks to start, right?
Yeah. And you're like, all right, I'll give this a shot. And then, it's eventually became the deluge it is now. But
yeah,
damn, Bocchi the Rock, what a good ass show! Holy shit!
Yeah, so it is as we've alluded to, it is a girls in a band type of show. I think we were all.
But what if she had mental illness?
I think we were all immediately turned off by the character designs and everything, which is why we were like. And even now, I'm not wild about the character designs, but like
they are generically anime,
right?
Yeah,
And I guess we were not expecting like an actual like. I think it's a combination of it's a funny comedy, it's like kind of black humor when it's in its depiction of Bocchi's social anxieties and her very too real worries that are very specific that I think a lot of people relate to, which they walk the fine line of keeping it funny without being too exploitative. Right. I think at least I feel that way. But
the way I kept describing it was like it's just pointed enough that's like it has the specificity that makes it funny, but without being like mean-spirited, right? And it doesn't, and then it doesn't go the other way into just generic,
right? Because we're all rooting for Bocchi, right? And it still feels fairly positive, right? Where she just it's just depicting,
and it's not like
anxieties, but
and also everyone's like supportive and not just being like you just need to gambare your way to top, right?
Well, I mean, I think also an important aspect of it is that nobody really treats Bocchi like one day you'll get through this phase, right? Or like one day we're going to cure you of this, right? It's like it's more. It really does come from a place of empathy of like, no, this is who Bocchi is. She's a valued friend and member of the band, and this is how she gets through things. And as friends, we'll be there for her, right? And I think again, a lot of it has to be. I mean, all that stuff is good, right? All that stuff thematically, narratively is well done. But I think it also has to be said that it is also really well done on the back of maybe rivaling Kaguya in some of the most creative directing
expressive
of
animation
anime in 2022.
We always talk about taking advantage of the medium, and this might be one of the best examples in a long time of like...
Oh, yeah.
And... forget Kaguya. It's almost Pop Team Epic levels of just like shifting art styles and like mediums. There's so bits of live action and like go ahead, Zig.
I was going to say even without any context, that T-posing scene was a magnificent bit of.
So
I mean, that's the great thing. Zig is like I think it's like that's such a good one, but it's like. I think everybody has their like one favorite like Bocchi visual gag. Like, for me, it's like one of my favorite ones, like maybe a little bit less obvious than like that one or Bocchi going cyber psycho in episode 4 is it's the joke where I think Bocchi's told that she's gonna have to sell 5 tickets to meet the quota. And it's that first person view of her like low poly hand or like a live action hand counting, right? And it's like dad, mom, sister, dog, dad, mom, sister, dog, dad, mom, sister, dog. And like the background is like this fisheye lens to like I think another like low poly 3D environment or something.
Yeah.
And it's like
you can tell they're just having so much fun making this.
We talked about this on an earlier podcast, but the way that a lot of the gags are still treated as if they're somewhat diegetic, right? It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
Bocchi will pop like a
Right,
balloon, and then in the next scene, her friends are carrying the rubber scraps of Bocchi,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
like she'll crawl into a trash can, but instead of just we cut to her in a trash can, she will slowly actually climb in and carefully step over and shake. And
Yes, yeah, or or yes, the diegetic Bocchi
Yes,
particles joke,
right.
Just I mean, again, it's like it's a show that like is clearly having so much fun with its premise and source material, and but also, as we said earlier, manages to still be like empathetic and like genuine and kind. Honestly, like despite
Yeah.
its humor.
It's the fact that it has like both of those
Yeah.
things, right? Like it
Yeah.
has the presentation, but it also has like a solid foundation that it's building that on top of, and those two together make it just like a really great comedy. I do have one final complaint.
I've been
we
waiting
didn't
for
get to
this
talk about
one.
the last episode.
Yes, I think I know what he's about to say.
At the end of the last episode, Bocchi swaps out her presumably vintage
Yep.
Gibson Les Paul that she got from her dad because she simply
Right,
broke
I've seen
a
this.
peg, like which is
Uh-huh.
easily replaceable. She goes and buys a Yamaha Pacifica, which is not. It's like I'll be kind and let's say it's a mid-level guitar.
Yeah,
As
it is
opposed
not
to-
on the level of a Les
It's
Paul.
like she bought at a store for
Because
like
I was
$30,
gonna say, is
right?
this-
Like,
I mean, because I was saying, is this the guitar equivalent of like trading out your dad's like Dodge Charger for a Honda Civic or something? Like,
Kind of. Yeah. And like I don't know if it was like sponsorship considerations or something, but I was like, no.
I wonder if it is because I was looking around for other people's like guitar takes, and a lot of it was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. The Yamaha Pacifica is like the like mid-entry level guitar you recommend to people who are
Right.
like getting into guitar. So if you're trying to sell a product to people watching this anime, it is a good one to like to showcase. Basically,
I might be
Plus,
crazy,
it has
but
the advantage of being glorious Nihon as well.
Sure.
yeah.
so I don't know anything about
yeah,
guitars. I assume, like doesn't
I mean,
Yui and K-On! Use a
Go ahead,
Gibson Les Paul also?
yes.
But everyone in K-On! Has like absurdly
Right.
good.
So what I'm
gear.
saying, is the Gibson Les Paul's like a super good high end guitar then, or something.
It's it's like one of the like.
It's
Like, if
arguably
you're
the
gonna
most
see-
legendary
Okay.
guitar ever made. Like,
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna see somebody playing guitar, you're either gonna see them playing a Gibson Les Paul, you're gonna see them playing a Fender Stratocaster, or maybe a Fender
Okay.
Telecaster, and those are like the guitars that you're
Got
gonna
it.
see people playing as like the, yeah. So yeah, it's a little weird that she buys like a probably $500 guitar or something at most, but yeah, I don't know. I just had to get that off my chest.
No, totally
you all
fair.
for
It's
indulging
why it's why Bocchi the Rock is only
Oh,
number
yeah.
6 on this list.
Yes, I would have
What's the
voted it much
guitar
higher
from
if.
that Haruko had in Fully Cooley.
Oh, that thing?
Oh
Like
well,
the
yeah, that was a
left-handed,
left.
So
It was like
left-handed
it was a Rickenbacker
Okay.
bass, left-handed, which is extremely
Got it.
rare. Which they
very
did on
old
purpose.
school cred there.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just fully cool,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
being up its own, I mean, on its brand of bullshit, right?
yes, yeah,
But
yeah. Anyway, Bocchi the Rock is good. Go watch.
yeah,
that.
no, hell of a show.
All right, let's move along to our. That's why I put the asterisk on our anime list here.
I mean, we've had Tokusatsu on this list
Yes,
before.
for our personal list, we do shows that we watch. And
Yes.
that extends to we cover Tokusatsu as well. So every now and then we'll get a Kamen Rider popping
Yep.
on here. And this time at number 5 we have Kamen Rider
Yes.
Black Sun, which I will just shout out to Aqua writing a very good post on this. You can check out, as well as Zig's write up in the top 10. But Zig and Iroh as our Toku people. If you want to take this one,
Go for it.
I guess I'd be interested to hear what Iron has to say about it first.
I enjoyed it because my Kamen Rider knowledge is pretty recent, and it's it's all the kids show stuff, right? Like we've watched Kuga, which is the first Heisei one. That's skewed a little closer to adult, but still a kids show.
Yeah, like important disclaimer here: Kamen Rider has always been a kids show. Even
the demographic shifts a little.
Yeah,
leans one way or the other, and so Black Sun as the like gritty modern reboot of Kamen Rider Black, which is one of the most noted older Kamen Rider shows. So it's like Kamen Rider Black's one that like Urabuchi cites a lot as like influential on him.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who grew up with original Kamen Rider is old now. So like Kamen Rider Black is like the one that like all the people who are working in anime and video games currently grew up with.
So it sort of takes the base plot of that and puts it in the modern day, and puts in practically every ridiculous political allegory they can think of in it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't for me, but on the whole, I think it comes out pretty positively. It's very politically charged in a way that's not always... They don't all seem to always know what they're doing, but
I mean, at the very least, it's not like right-wing.
No,
Japanese,
they are taking hits on those guys.
Oh, yeah, the other direction, right? Like
they are trying to take those guys down.
Yeah, because if we want to be real for a second, I feel like for better or worse, anytime we talk about a Japanese work getting, in scare quotes, political,
right? Yes, you raise an eyebrow.
It's usually not. Yeah, it's usually not a positive connotation. I would say shall we say
broadly positive here because they are very like fake Shinzo Abe is a major character, right? And they
like there is fake Unit 731 in this show, except instead of doing horrible real war crimes, they made cyborg.
I mean, on the side next to the real war crimes.
Yes. It's implied the real war crimes did also happen. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think I actually asked this question at the start of when you guys first started covering it.
But yeah,
did Kamen Rider kill Shinzo Abe?
No. One of the supporting characters did.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Did
they do it with a homemade fucking?
No, they fucking lariated his head off. In an alley.
Wow! All right.
So this is one of the points I wanted to make about the show is that like there's been a lot of talk about how like, and to be clear, like Toei have done this before. Like there were 2 seasons of Kamen Rider Amazons that was also on Amazon Synergy, which were similarly, fairly explicit, violent shows. But the thing is, like, people have been saying this is serious tokusatsu, and
it's so comical
not, because tokusatsu inherently is like goofy. What it is it doesn't use that goofiness for comedy most of the time. It instead uses it for melodrama, if that makes sense. It is extremely goofy, but in the way that like all emotions are heightened. Everybody is overacting. Everybody is like everything is the most serious thing in the world. And that takes a little getting used to, but it's a lot. I think it can be very effective. I think that they have made a series of updates to this that are like broadly sympathetic and interesting ways to change the story. Like this thing is very, very like as an adaptation of Kamen Rider Black, it's very, very different, if that makes sense. Like the thing about Kamen Rider Black is that it's kind of just a remake of the original Kamen Rider, as most of the original Showa era shows are. Like Kamen Rider is created by an evil cult and then he fights against the cult for the smiles of the children and all that. And here they have changed the evil cult into being like a governmental party. There's like a lot more history stuff, like a good third, maybe even half of this show takes place in flashback to the 1970s and even the 1950s and stuff like that. Is
this this kind of like the equivalent of those Tatsunoko
Kinda.
reimaginings like Gatchaman Crowds and Cashier
Kind
Yeah.
of, yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Yatterman Night.
Yes.
Where they're taking this like old kid show and putting this kind of political spin
Right.
on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think as well, like, it just benefits from very high production values relative to weekly tokusatsu, which is one of the cheapest things on the planet, you know.
Mhm.
But it looks nice.
I mean,
there's actual
they still go to the-
direction.
They still go to the rock quarry,
Don't
right?
actually. I don't think they ever did.
They don't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
No.
I will.
They're-
Is it really?
There are a
Kamen
couple
Rider,
of-
then?
There are some scenes on like blasted like wastelands
Yeah.
and old
But
like
not that
industrial
quarry.
estates and stuff. So that's it. But that
Yeah.
quarry is not in
Oh.
it. No.
Go ahead. All right.
No,
I
please,
think
go on.
like maybe the thing I could say till that like vindicates the show the most is that like it seems like it's doing the thing where like the villain character is right, but then they go too far, right? And so it sort of seems like it's going that way for a bit, and they're a very sympathetic character still, and et cetera, et cetera. But like by the end of the show, like the main protagonist is basically like, no, yeah, he was right. Time to start my insurgency campaign to tear down the right. Like,
Yeah, the ending of the show is basically the ending of Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. Like, we are training a terrorist army to overthrow the state.
Yeah.
Like, it's yeah, like, look,
That's
it's
wild.
not it's not perfect, but they do it with such
Mhm.
conviction, you know. And like
Yes.
I've said this, a lot of people have said this. It's perhaps the least
Oh,
subtle
yeah.
show ever. You know, it is the Garth Marenghi
Yes,
saying,
yes.
"I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards." Like, written large, but it's saying important things, and in the most part it's doing them at least broadly pretty well, you know. Also, I just want to say there's a lot of really fun extreme violence in it. It's great. Like there's a shot where like some guy's arm comes into frame and then it just gets cut off and catapulted across the room. You know, there's a scene where like all the way through there's been this really obnoxious like right-wing fascist like guy who's been super racist, and in one scene like the second rider just crushes his head like an
right.
egg.
It's like
and
this
it's great.
dude is, yeah.
Lots of like
I don't need to get into specific.
lots of good old-fashioned like juicy violence and like fights and
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah. It's not bad.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Pete.
I've been having more, not just related just to Kamen Rider Black Sun, having not watched it, but the way you guys talk about it is like sort of percolating an idea that I've been thinking about for a while that may apply to actually multiple shows on this top 10 list. So I have a friend who, as of this year, much to my smug vindication, is very much beginning to fall out of love with the sort of Western approach to like cinematic storytelling and
Yes.
franchise building. Like this is like they've always been a big fan of like, you know, the MCU, and you know, at least they were initially very excited for the
Sure,
Star
sure.
Wars trilogy and, you know, all, such and such,
Yeah.
right? You know, these big franchises, right? But I think this is the year that was somewhat of a breaking point for them, because basically their exasperation stemmed from, God, why does none of this shit, like, why don't they take their own plots seriously? Like, it's not even necessarily that like, oh, I need my plots to be serious or whatever within the context of the tone of the series, but it's more like, how come even in universe these people,
They're just glib about
you know,
everything.
I mean the
like,
the quick and dirty is why do they quip about fucking everything, right? I mean, and of course we get into a much
Yeah,
longer
yeah.
topic on that, and I'm not here to do that. But and as a result, this is the year where they finally, as I told them, you returned home, I see, to anime, and you know they started watching like Thunderbolt Fantasy this year,
Great
for
stuff.
example, and you know specifically, Zig, was you talking about like Kamen Rider is Toku. It is inherently kind of goofy, but like it uses its goofiness not to be glib or to like be self-effacing, but in the name of its own specific unique style of melodrama.
Right. Yes, and
I think
the thing I've always said about Toku is that it is classic camp by the very definition of the thing.
But
which is that
what I'm getting at it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
No, you could finish. Okay, it's just that like it can be camp, but that doesn't invalidate the sincerity of the characters in the show itself in relation to the plot lines they're involved in.
Right. The characters in universe are not cracking jokes about this. This is deadly serious to them, right?
Right, yeah, which is why like even the like goofy ones can be surprisingly like you still get into the story, you know, you still want
yeah, exactly.
Like, we talked about, like, a few years back, we talked about Uebuchi's Kamen Rider Gaim, you know, which is, like, a very serious story that dwells on a lot of Uebuchi's, like, trademark things about, like, you know, cycles of violence and, like, should power be automatically give you a right to rule. But there's also an episode in that show where the evil scientist takes his brain out and puts it in an android that goes around shooting things till they explode, you know, and he denotes that he's taking his brain out by doing a dotted line on his head with a felt tip.
Of course,
pen.
yes.
Right.
You know,
they're also bug men with fruit.
And so, like, for like in Black Sun, in Black Sun specifically, like
a
really good example from early in the show is like a major character's father is kidnapped and transformed by the villains to hunt her down, and you know he's turned into this crab man who chases her around, walking sideways because he's a crab man.
Yeah,
you know. And like she's like hiding and crying because it's her father trying to kill her, right?
Oh yeah,
and then you know, and then Whale Man shows up to save her, right? And a Whale Man just disembowels Crab Dude, you know, tears his shell apart, rips his arm off, right? So like we get this quiet scene of her walking down the street after this harrowing encounter, cradling this giant crab claw. Because it's the only thing left of her father.
Yes, like that's great. Like I truly love that.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
I kind of want to watch. I kind of want to watch this now.
So this is what I'm kind of getting at is like, and again, I mean, I'm specifically this came up because you guys really nailed it in how you talked about Black Sun. But I think in a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of the best anime in our top 10 lists are here because for however novel or kooky or zany or however whatever like adjective you want to use to describe a lot of these shows, they are like sincere in their intentions. Like they are fully committed to the storylines they are communicating to you, no matter like how like externally odd they may appear.
Well,
and
I think it's cool.
Yeah, I think you're I don't think we're going to get a better transition into the next show.
Yeah,
on our list here.
I just realized that
because I
mean, appeal.
Zig, do you have one more thing you wanted to say?
The only thing I was going to say was that like that doesn't mean these shows aren't self-aware. They know what they're doing. It's just that they choose to willfully not acknowledge that thing. You know, and to me, I think that is the sign of like. That's what writing is about, right? Like, you know, you aim to perpetuate the illusion. And the thing about Kamen Rider Black Sun is that, like, yes, it's goofy, and from the outside it can be very silly, you know, but it's still an engaging story because the people in it treat it with, you know, as a serious matter. And so that means that silly things can happen, like, you know, Crab Dad trying to kill his daughter by scuttling sideways. And that, you know, and you can laugh at that, and it's silly and goofy, but it doesn't destroy the illusion of the show because, you know, because of the melodramatic nature of the way the medium works, it is all part of that same thing.
Right.
You know, the silly bits sit alongside the serious bits with equal weight.
Yeah.
Speaking of number 4 on our top 10.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're talking about does apply to number 4 on our list, which is Akiba Maid War. Again, if we want to talk about shows that came out of nowhere here. Yeah, so this is it's a show about maids in 1999, the supposed rise of maid cafes, although I will still claim that maid cafes did not exist in 1999 yet. But anyway, the twist here being that they are basically run like Yakuza crime families and
Yes.
murdering each other in the streets. And it's like it's like the best kind of crime drama with the whole thing is like, the whole joke is like this bizarre juxtaposition of the colorful, cute maid aesthetic laid on top of like a very hard-boiled crime drama, right?
Right. Because I mean, that's the thing that makes Akiba Maid War work so well, is that like PA Works understood with this show that like the only way to make this premise work at all was to boldly commit to it from start to finish, right? Like Akiba Maid War never wavers in its commitment to the bit, right?
Yes.
It never laughs or like loses its composure or winks at the camera. It's like, no, this is the show. Like it's the Yakuza Maid show. It is truly like a tribute to like that era of like heroic bloodshed, Yakuza crime thriller through the aesthetics of like, I don't know, I guess, yeah, like tech, yeah, like 90s, early 2000s maid culture, right? And yeah, I mean, again, like we were, like I was just getting at, in response to how you guys talked about Black Sun, I feel like that's also sort of Akiba Maid War's greatest strength. And like, you can go back to our old podcasts. We were, the first episode definitely caught our attention, but we were not instantly sold on the premise of this show. Like we were
I think like the first like 2 episodes where we were kind of skeptical.
Yeah, it's
maybe
like,
even 3.
This joke's gonna get old,
Yeah,
like we were all like thought like they can't keep this up, right? But they did. They totally did.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to rehash everything because we covered things pretty thoroughly in the previous episodes. You can all.
I will say we never did do a like final wrap up like talk about Akiba Maid War, so we can fit a little bit of that in here.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about the final episode, which I think we can get to in a second,
dude.
But yeah, I think it's such an interesting combination of like, this is a legitimate crime drama, but because you have so like you're getting like both of it, right? Like you're getting this really good crime drama stuff, but it's also hilarious.
Oinky Doink Cafe
because it has that layer of and I'll just reiterate the peak moment that you brought up last episode, G, with like Ronko drawing the omurice thing in blood on the floor, like. That was like the pinnacle of Akiba Maid War, right? Like,
because it is Akiba Maid War at both its most dramatic and its funniest somehow.
You're getting it from all angles, yeah.
And I think that's actually what makes Akiba Maid War appear here so high on our list, is like the finale is legitimately like heart-wrenching and tense to watch. Like for how like absurd it is, right? Like hey, so hey, this is a top 10. We may get into spoilers here a little bit, but like the fucking choice of when they're at Ronko's funeral,
and pick the photo.
They pick the picture of her from the baseball episode.
Yeah,
the implication being this is the only good photo we could find of her is so damn funny. While the rest of the cast are bawling their eyes out, like legitimately, and like you are legitimately like affected by the departure of this really great, funny, compelling character. It's still goddamn hilarious.
And the actual like climax of it all with the final like performance with Nogami and I have not felt that tense watching an anime in I don't even know how long. Like,
dude, like scenes in the last episode of Akiba Maid War feel like they are just pulled directly out of the Yakuza games. Like, same tenor and tone. Like Kiryu might not do an idol dance, but Kiryu would like bravely walk towards his shooter and like take a bullet to the gut and keep
Right.
walking.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the thing. They're brilliant at finding like the
Mhm.
maid equivalent
Yes.
of that,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Because that's exactly it's like the maid equivalent of what Kiryu would have done. He would have
He would have
bravely,
bravely done the
walked up
dance
to the right,
and
into the bullet.
given them the omurice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very good.
I can't believe this show exists, man. It's like,
yeah, I kind of don't want to spoil any more of it, really, but just like it's definitely like if you, I think especially if you like those kinds of like
Yeah.
hard-boiled crime dramas, then you're gonna appreciate the how much that the creators of the show understand
Mhm.
that genre and are able to
I mean,
recreate it.
even down to the epilogue, which you're right. I guess, not to spoil too much, right? But like, even the epilogue feels in line with the sort of like the rare sort of bittersweet,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the rare happy but bittersweet ending
Right.
that like you get in crime thrillers, right? Like that epilogue is like the absolute happiest it can get
Yeah.
in that type of genre.
There's
is like,
there's going to be a price to pay, right?
right, there's
Mhm.
always a price to be paid.
Always a price
but
to pay.
But if you truly fight for your ideals and you never waver from your convictions, maybe, just maybe, you can carve out
Mhm.
a tiny slice of peace for yourself.
Yeah.
But you may
And-
have to give up everything. It's
Yeah.
like, God damn.
And I think that too was the other thing. Based on PA Works' reputation, I was
Right.
not
Mhm.
expecting them to
Oh,
like
not
Right, because like
this.
go
what
as hard as
Aquatope
they
was like
did.
earlier this year, right? Oh my
I
goodness.
think
Was
that
that
was
last year? I think.
Last
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like
Oh,
your
yeah,
boy
yeah, yeah.
Kongming was earlier this
Yes.
year, and like
Yeah, so that's a good
given
example.
how that show like devolved into the most generically PA Works thing
Right.
ever, not a high
And-
moment for them.
And even
Yeah.
with the like hyper violent
Mhm.
episode 1, there were still opportunities for them to pull their punches more than at some point. And
Right.
Mm-hmm.
even like what happens in the ending with Nogami, like they could have backed off that.
Yeah.
And they
Oh,
don't.
sure. Yeah.
And I think that also, was important
Yeah.
for this to work. It could very easily could have settled back into the typical PA Works working girl show and with occasional bout of violence, right?
I mean, the epilogue is a pretty strong statement because the thing that is cool about Akiba Maid War is like, I mean, look, I might be proven wrong. For all we know, like next year we'll get an announcement of season 2 or a movie. But like, the thing that feels so cool about and good about Akiba Maid War is it feels singular, especially with that epilogue.
Yes.
Like that feels like PA Works saying, "This is all you're ever
over,
going to get
yeah.
of this story." Like,
Yeah.
maybe we'll, who knows? Maybe we'll do another Akiba Maid War someday. But this is Nagomi's story.
Yeah.
Like we're closing the book on it. Like,
They have the
Yeah.
best baseball episodes in
Well,
Storohadoro.
So it was a
yeah,
very good
probably.
baseball episode.
Yeah, it's a very good baseball episode.
And one more RIP to my personal best problematic waifu of 2022, 36-year-old maid,
Yep.
Ranko Manen, rest in peace.
Mhm.
Yeah,
The best to ever do it.
the best to ever do it. The GOAT. Yeah. No. All right. Well, let's move along to number 3. And we'll talk about
Ranking of Kings.
Ranking of Kings.
I'm surprised this one made
Oh,
it this high up the list, guys. I'm
not
think it's-
surprised.
You guys need to turn over your hands. All right, who? Like,
Okay.
how did this get up here?
I think it's fascinating to watch, kind of like the pendulum swing backwards and forwards on opinion for it.
So let's start at the beginning here. Ranking of Kings. It is the story of a young prince named Bocchi who is next in line to be king, but because he cannot speak or hear, Nobody takes him seriously and just assumes his half brother is going to take the throne. But Bocchi wants to be king, and he's determined to do it. And there's a lot of other machinations going on in the background and whatnot. And it's kind of his adventure, trying to become king.
Yeah.
Let's start with the positive things a little bit first.
Sure.
Because we've already said many times throughout the year how we're very disappointed in the ending. And, prior to that, this was slam dunk easy #1 anime of the year.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason why we say that is because up until like particularly the first half, the second half is a little bit weaker but still good. But up until like the last
3 to 4 episodes,
couple of
episodes, 3,
yeah,
actually maybe more than that. Yeah, it might be
it's
like
some
last
of the
4.
best. It's some of the best anime probably I've ever seen in the GLORIO era. Like
it's up there for sure.
Yeah, like Bocchi's such a lovable character that you're emotionally invested in. The rest of the cast, most of the time till the ending, are very nuanced type of people.
Yeah.
They're not overtly good or evil. They have their strengths and
like
weaknesses.
What struck me most about Ring of Kings is that like the way that the story is told was very compelling to me, because like, as you brought up, like all the characters have a lot of nuance, but it's like when they first show up, almost nobody seems like they do at the very beginning, right? Like character shows up,
right? They are all
right.
They're
you
all
see character and you're like, I guess I know what this dude's deal is, right? And then like they will drop like one line somewhere, or they will do one thing that makes you go, huh? Wait a minute. Let me think about this.
Completely
And like it just
recontextualizes.
keeps doing this over and over and over. Is something will happen that will make you recontextualize everything you've seen up till now in a way, in a way where like it's not incongruous at all, right? You just go like,
yeah, and that's very hard to do, because I usually hate when anime tries to like introduce a bad guy then redeem them, because they do it a lot. That happens a lot.
Because usually it feels cheap, like they haven't earned it, right?
And most of the characters in this show are introduced as some form of like evil or suspicious, or
at least like morally complicated.
I mean, we get like Queen Healing, who's like the stereotypical evil stepmother, right? And then by the end, she's like the best character.
Yeah, she sure is.
And that's very hard to pull off, as we'll see in the ending. But and on top of so you have all that, and that goes on top of some of like the best fantasy world building we've seen in a long time. There's this very like creepy, unknowable,
because there's the ranking of kings. There's the top list of kings, and something happens to the #1 king, right?
And we're introduced to like bits of like history, and enough to like make your imagination go off, but not enough to really explain things. And we see like arcane rituals and things that are like weird and creepy, and everything is just so good. Like all like 10 out of 10 no notes for the first half.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it also should be mentioned, right, that like Ranking of Kings is sort of a Mob Psycho or One Punch Man situation of Wit Studio really gave this is one of those glow up adaptations, right?
Oh yeah, it looks fantastic.
Manga art
is
amazing. Like very simplistic and such.
Yes, like this is like one of the most beautifully made shows of like this and last year, right? Like it's Wit running on all cylinders. It is them like proudly reminding you, we dropped Attack on Titan to make this instead. And good, yeah, exactly, right? like I'd much rather watch Dorsch suplex like 3 demon dogs.
Oh God,
yeah,
that's,
right? No, like here's something. If you get
so
me,
good.
if you get me talking, I'll talk about how much I used to love this show. I used to like you guys kind of got all of it, but just like this show was possessed of such a great sense of like empathy and kindness, but also a willingness to go harder than like any other fucking show I had seen last year. You know, like. Dorsch and Healing, right? But even like guys like like fucking Bepin, right? Like Snake Man, right? The first time you get the flashback of him taking care of the formerly 3, now 2-headed snake, and like just like it's.
I always
Like-
I always cite that as my moment of like when, as far as the world building, like won me over was when Bocchi's out of
Falls
friends
into a
and he's
hole
running away
somewhere,
crying,
right?
and you think he has no one left to turn to. He crawls into a hole and is like, "Oh, this 3-headed snake missing a head is actually owes me a favor or something." Like, what? And there's no explanation at that point. Like, you're just like that kind of sense of wonder, as the backdrop for this amazing story going on and these characters. It's just everything is great.
Sort of happens, and like, though we have praised the show's like willingness to extend empathy to people, like it sort of does it to somebody who sort of doesn't deserve it.
Definitely doesn't.
I would say even more than that, the actual main problem with the end of Reiki of Kings is that it extends its empathy to the wrong people and retracts its hands away from those who are more worthy of it. Like God, what's his name? The brother,
Oken,
the immortal brother,
Oken.
Oken.
No, Oken.
Yeah.
Oken is dealt such
Awful
a truly like tortuous, like awful hand, like the most hellish existence imaginable, that he is explicitly doomed to suffer for eternity.
Yeah. And
we're just gonna deny. We're just gonna deny him that wish. We're just gonna deny the wish
we'll
to
do
fix
that
him.
next time.
Like, no, it's cool. It's like,
I'm assuming then that they do not play this for the tragedy
it's like
that it
they're
seems
very
to deserve,
quickly trying to wrap up
Right.
things because it's the end of the season, and it's like,
right.
Yeah, basically,
and
I mean,
it just pisses me off because, like, the character who does get the empathy,
Miranjo.
which is oh my god, what's her
Miranjo.
name? Miranjo, doesn't really.
She just says she
that
gets
thing,
forgiven,
right?
and she's
Like,
just like,
she is-
I promise I'll make it up to you all. Right? It's like we
She
right. It's like
cries
we haven't
and
gotten
says she's sorry, and like
the intentionality or like we haven't been shown like her willingness to actually make amends. Right?
Yeah. Because everything we've seen of Miranjo to that point,
because like
was
it's not that
like,
she wasn't a sympathetic character.
They try to play that. Yeah, but like
Or just so
her
heinous.
actions, like they try to play off her past, which that part is sympathetic.
Boy, we could get into that
in the degree to the degree of like how she was abused and treated, but like her actions after that are not excusable.
Right. And it's
No,
like
they are not.
I still
And
find her like some sympathetic character who's doing things that she shouldn't be doing, right? And it's like you can
right
do that, and you can still have somebody be like, what I've done is beyond the pale, and like there are ways to show
right
that person's willing to try and make amends. And
They literally
earlier
do it in the show with Domas.
right. That's
Domas
why
is a complete dipshit. He sucks, but also he knows he sucks, and he is trying his best to suck less. He gets kicked in the nuts for it.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's such a slap in the face at the end, because like we know you can do this. You've been doing this the entire
when it matters
show,
the most,
and when it matters the most at the climax, you blew it.
Yep.
And it's going back to our age-old debate of how much does the ending affect your overall opinion.
A lot.
Yeah, and it does affect, it does affect affect it a lot, but
for better or worse, endings are arguably the second most important thing after openings, and the impression that you're left of a show is going to going to dictate
Yeah.
how you feel about it, really.
Right. And you know, I mean, a lot of times if a show has some kind of message to it, it's your closing statement of what you're trying to say, right? And what is it saying? I feel like you've undermined everything that you've talked about previous to that. It's for me, it was tricky because it's like it was so good up to
It was so good.
that point. And honestly, like if there was another season of it, I'd still be interested. Like because the way it ends is Bocchi getting out of there, right? So if we're gonna go on more adventures with Bocchi somewhere else, I'd probably be willing to check that out. But
I think I am. It's just like that
they're not going to have the same benefit of the doubt. That's for sure.
Like it's going to have such an uphill battle to win me back because like. I mean, we can't like debate the entire story here or litigate the entire thing. But it's just like I gotta say it at least once because I might never get to say the dude's name ever again. Like, shout outs to King Desha, shout outs to King Waluigi,
yes,
the Lightning King, now the number one. That dude is gonna get fucked over so hard in the story.
Yeah,
like you can feel it, right?
Most definitely.
Like he explicitly knows becoming the number one king is a bad fucking trade, but he is willing to do it on the agreement that it might save his brother, right? Now that the wish plan no longer works, right? And like that makes me even more mad about what's to come in the future of Ranking of Kings, right? Is that not only did you extend the hand of empathy to Miranja, who doesn't deserve it, that has now actively fucked over the life of a character I legitimately like way more than Miranja.
Yeah, and you know, again, it's not just personal preference, but it's like it just doesn't match what the show's been doing up to now. Like, it's very frustrating.
What a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame because otherwise this was easy number one. But you know, I personally still think it's worth watching and making your own decision. But
fair enough.
You know. All right.
At least it didn't beat out the true anime of the year. What are you miscounting?
Number one in our hearts.
No, this is we are here at number one of 2022.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean the list I'm looking at says number one. I don't know what you guys are looking at, but
look, in certain ways, this show can never be like fully encompassed by a list or a ranking of anything. So
so let's say what we're talking about. Number two, we have Birdie Wing Golf Girl Story, and you know, this is funny because your anime of the year typically has a certain level of like prestige and dignity to it.
Or at least some degree of like cultural cachet, right? Because
or
even something like you know, Kill, which won Anime of the Year, had like the name attached to it, the technical construction of it.
And it was telling a serious story at the end of the day. You know, it was like a very
had a plot.
pulpy one,
yes,
but yes,
yeah.
Meanwhile,
and Birdie Wing has none of those things.
Nothing. It has none of those qualities.
Oh my
Not
goodness.
a single to its name.
But can you honestly say any other anime this year has brought us more collective joy? In both watching it and our ensuing discussions and just thinking back fondly on the things that happened.
Chance.
Yeah, I don't know if any other anime delivered that level of just sheer entertainment.
Even now, just thinking about it, I think when the arm scene happened, in Birdie Wing, is the hardest I've laughed.
That is the
in a hot minute.
That is the catalyzing moment of Birdie Wing. That is the moment where you realize, like, it's not the transforming golf course. It's not even the golf lesbians or VR. It is when Rose Alion's cybernetic hand flies off from the strain of playing high stakes underground golf. Now you realize, this is art. This is
you forgot.
There is nothing like this, and there will never be something like this ever again.
You forgot Viper's hypnotic titty sweat.
Yes, God.
Right. Yes.
So anyway, Birdie Wing Golf Girl Story. I don't know if summarizing the plot.
To give it a synopsis.
Is even it's. I'll just say it's not a golf anime. Like, if you're thinking this is like...
It's kind of only a golf anime.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Like, it is actually very concerned with golf in universe.
Yes.
Like it has. I've said this several times, but it has the Yu-Gi-Oh thing where like it is a show about a thing, and the thing is automatically the most important thing in the universe to the exclusion of all other things.
Yes. Like
So
our main
good.
character is a golf hustler, or that's how she starts out.
She's not a
and-
golfer. She just hits a ball with a stick for money.
She gets tangled up with organized crime, trying to save her illegal immigrant family.
Organized crime where the crime is about golf. Like
Yes, where they settle their differences with golf.
Mafia.
And just crazy things happen.
The other girl is the daughter of the CEO of a golf corporation. Like, she is a multi-billionaire
golf
in
conglomerate, golf Zaibatsu. Like,
yeah.
And she is specifically the genetic progeny of in-universe two of the greatest golfers who have ever played the sport.
I'm still waiting for them to say that she was created in a test tube to play golf.
Oh, I'm waiting, dude. I cannot
we'll
wait for
see.
season 2.
It's gonna happen, but yeah, I think just the pure. It feels like pure unhinged chaos, but when you really think about it, I think the writers know exactly what they're doing.
Yes.
You have to be very smart to be this stupid. Right?
Yes, exactly.
That's a great way of putting it.
This is finely crafted stupidity.
Like when we have the gangland execution immediately cutting to Eve exclaiming that the drinks are free, like that's not random. That is a carefully calculated joke, but it seems so random.
Yes, that cut by the director
Perfect.
was very much planned, and they knew exactly what they were doing. It's just so much fun.
This is how anime ought to be.
Right. Like I think the issue is that I think anyone listening to this who has not watched the show is really going to be scratching their heads at like what the fuck are these guys talking about? Like that show looks like ass. It's about a really boring sport. Like,
don't bother watching the trailers. Like,
Yeah, I think as we all, you can hear it in our voices. Birdie Wing is a joyous piece of media. Like, it just feels good to watch. Fun. It makes you smile. Like unironically so. Like, genuinely, there is genuine mirth to be found in engaging with this story and its characters. Birdie Wing, like, you're talking about how, writers who use subtext are liars. I'm out here saying that, like, what's that? Yosuke Kuroda, the writer of Birdie Wing, is proof that anime writers are truly the bravest people in the world. like they fear nothing. Like, this show literally has a character, an explicitly foreign, non-Japanese character who explicitly does not know the language of Japanese
to join golf school,
fly to Japan, and speaks in Japanese, except she doesn't. Until the plot decides she does.
And then she actually acknowledges.
Japanese,
I guess I can speak Japanese.
It's insane. And I'm still over here, like, with my freaking Charlie Day corkboard again. Like, boy, I've been making a lot of corkboards this year for anime. Like, speculating that there's a non-zero chance that one-off joke will actually have long-running narrative ramifications.
Absolutely.
Her childhood. Who knows what happened to her?
Yeah. All of this is setting up our highly anticipated season 2, which I think is next season. They bumped it to April.
I'm so scared, dude. I feel like because so for context, this show is not only that, but this anime is being done by Sunrise, or I guess now they're known as Bandai Namco Pictures.
Whatever, Sunrise.
Who are very busy with Gundam, which is why Birdie Wing got pushed back to spring. And my great fear is, like,
it's going to be a casualty.
They're just going to keep pushing it back, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
to make because Gundam is currently an all hands on deck scenario. Like,
well, I do think it's interesting because I do think, or at least I get the impression that Birdie Wing was a much bigger success than they were expecting.
Is it? I'm not sure.
I think perhaps it generated more buzz than they were expecting.
I mean, the bar was very low to begin with, but
they did throw quite a lot of money at this show. Like, it has an extremely notable voice cast for a start.
Char Aznavour and Amuro Ray are in this goddamn show.
Yeah, literally named Amuro Rea, right? Like,
yeah.
No, right, Amuro, like,
or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. Hopefully, we have not. Hopefully, season 2 actually airs, and hopefully, we have not hyped it up too much. Because we did get like the second half is more of like slightly more conventional school story.
Yeah, but even then, remember when that girl pulls out her golf stand? Like, stand as in JoJo stand.
They still find
literally.
And
remember when she says, "I'll kill you in golf"?
Yes, yeah! I mean that's the greatest. That's the greatest line of dialogue of 2022. I think we can all agree on that.
How about just every time, like the show just gleefully embraces Eve being a big dumb gaijin, and just has her dressing in like increasingly deranged outfits at like these posh like golf courses.
Yeah. Great.
It's good. Okay. So, final word. This also continues the streak of Sid Mead only working on extremely good anime shows. So that settles it.
Right, yes. Shout outs to the very bizarre Gundam deep cuts in Birdie Wing.
Perhaps the only time anybody has ever thought of the ZM-S19S Shaitan since 1993.
Jesus.
Yeah, even their promotional tie-ins are brilliant, like the Tears of the Pac-Man and all the Gunpla,
the constant Gunpla appearances.
Like they just totally shameless. We're not even like attempting to mask this at all. Like,
we just scanned these boxes and put them in,
which is how it should be.
They didn't just scan the boxes. That's the insane thing. They redrew the boxes. It's not even the old Gunpla art. They redrew it for Birdie Wing.
I remember you did the research on that, G. Yeah, they actually drew a new box, which is insane. Yeah. What a show.
Great show.
What a show.
All right, well, while that may be number one in our hearts, our actual statistical number one is Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
Again, I guess.
Yes. Congratulations to Trigger for the second time in GLORIO history.
Yeah. So this is, of course, the announced years ago as a tie-in adaptation to the Cyberpunk 2077 video game. Again, so
a lot of things have happened in the years since then.
Yes, this was prior to the release of the video game, so it did not have any of that context when it was first announced. The game initially being released did not help.
Let's say it did not have any of that baggage.
Yes,
exactly.
I would say the initial release of that game did not help our expectations. But the anime turned out pretty good.
I'd say more than pretty good. Like it's. I mean, again, we say it every time, and we'll say it again, right? Cyberpunk anime, Studio Trigger, directed by Imaishi. Especially once the game came out and we found out about the game's tone and aesthetic and approach to storytelling. I think we very much expected Cyberpunk Edgerunners to be, and I mean this in every sense of the terminology, an 80s cyberpunk OVA.
We kept saying like, well,
sex and violence at Mach speed.
Right, but I think what caught a lot of us off guard is that, I mean, in a lot of ways, like 2020's Akudama Drive, it's a cyberpunk story that like doesn't miss a shot, right? Like it takes a swing at.
We'll get into that.
We are talking about it in the context of it being number one on this list. So
I think that it is much more subversive and much more interested in the punk part of cyberpunk than anybody expected, really.
Sure, yes. The thing I'm getting at is that, like, Edgerunners gets cyberpunk, like, again, I guess in a very surprising way, considering arguably how kind of poorly 2077 gets cyberpunk. Like, Edgerunners is a story entirely about banal, mundane cruelty. You know, the origin story of its hero has nothing to do with, like, governmental conspiracies or, you know, fate or anything like that, you know? He's just a kid caught in a bad situation, a bad place at a bad time.
Right. Yeah, it's very good at depicting how the corporate hierarchy of Night City has ground him down and pushed him over the edge, which is the core cyberpunk thing, right? Like technology has subverted humanity.
Right. And also, like, that it's a broken system, but it is a broken system by design. Like, everyone is trying to fuck someone over, and everyone is getting fucked over by somebody else. Right? It's a constant, like, you know, it is crabs in a bucket mentality on a societal level. And, you know, in between, like, you know, again, Amaishi's, like, really eye-catching direction and style is, like, a legitimately, like, compelling cast of characters. Like, for its short 10-episode run, I truly came to, like, love every single character in Edgerunners. Like, I even the ones that are kind of playing more bit roles, you know, even the ones that are not as prominent in the story, I think, you know, in the way that Amaishi does.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of Imaishi's strengths as a director and as a creative is that he can imbue bit parts, even like bit parts that are just baddies or comedy sidekicks, you know, with humanity, both through, you know, direction and art direction, but also just through the way that the story is put together. You know, you really feel personality even from the very bit parts in that show.
Right, like he can make a character memorable with a couple of lines of dialogue and, like, one, like, you know, memorable animation sequence or moment.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think for that's why, like, it makes a lot of sense that, you know, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, like, makes it so high up on this list.
Yeah, it definitely it definitely covers a lot of the things I would want out of a cyberpunk anime, and in addition to, you know, looking the part.
I think the reason why it's on top here is strength in depth, right? Like, I think it is very strong all around. It is well written. It looks great. You know, it's well directed.
There's nothing like really. There's no, like, weak points to it, right? It's a very solid. It's either doing things. It's either very solid or fantastic in everything that's doing. I find it interesting. I felt like it's kind of the most personal story I can think of from Trigger, as far as, like, I do
they
feel
tend to
like
work in pretty broad strokes. Like,
and while there are, like, big,
right, like,
while there are very,
I was
like,
going to say
big themes, I feel like this is mostly the story about David and Lucy, right?
I mean, I think an inherent part of that is that, like, in cyberpunk stories, generally the antagonists are not really personal, right? They are faceless corporations and mega entities, you know. And I think that means that there is more focus on protagonists and on kind of like the Band of Brothers thing.
Right, but I guess I think what makes Edgerunners, like, even especially notable in that regard is, like, you know, we've compared the two because, again, I mean, I guess now they're both, you know, have been our anime of the year and are both cyberpunk. Like, we loved Akudama Drive because of its broad strokes, right? I don't think any of us were particularly compelled by the individuality of any specific character in Akudama
Right.
Drive as much as we were like really bought in by its an ensemble cast
Right.
and the
The-
themes
the-
it was playing with.
The cast of Akudama
Whereas-
Drive is meant to represent ideals more so than be real people, right?
Right. Whereas, like, you know, like, yes, on some level, you know, if you really want to break it down to its base parts, David and Lucy's story is a tragic,
Mhm.
doomed romance, right? Like, that's what it is. But, like, yeah, like, they just infuse it with so much, I mean, I don't know, I guess humanity, I guess. Like it feels,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, you're pretty
genuine.
high humanity.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Is like I don't.
I knew you'd say that. I was even
Sorry.
hesitant to even use the
Sorry.
term, but I couldn't think of a better word in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of at the core. It's a love story, right? Which is interesting to me.
Mhm.
Probably not what I was expecting.
Right.
But you know, they have, of course, the cyberpunk themes as sort of the framework of that, and that's kind of what informs their tragical relationship. And you know, yeah, I think it's good. I know, for myself, and I think Zig as well, were probably not as high on it, but I think everybody liked Cyberpunk Edgerunners. If that's
I
fair to
enjoyed
say.
Cyberpunk a great
Yeah.
deal. You know, I mean, I do not want in any way to give the impression that I think it's a bad show or like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely,
I didn't enjoy it.
yes.
I think for me, the key thing, and like I put it 5th on my own personal list. So like, you know, I still clearly liked it enough to put the vote in, but I had a couple of things above it. I think for me personally is that I would have appreciated a bit more engagement with some of the fundamental cyberpunk themes. You know, I think that overall the show is structured a bit more like a crime story than a cyberpunk story, and that is
Right.
neither here nor there. You know, it's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just an observation. But when it comes to cyberpunk stories, you know, we've seen it's obviously a very crowded and very oversubscribed genre, you know, and I appreciate it is very, very difficult perhaps to wring something meaningfully new out of that, but I would have liked to perhaps see some more engagement on that side of it. But I also think that reflects my own personal tastes in what I want to see from, you know, futurist / cyberpunk media. So that's neither here nor there, so to speak.
Right. It's
Yeah,
kind
no,
of more of
I
a
think
personal preference thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
I do think that is a fair like take on on Edgerunners specifically because I think when it comes to like sci-fi storytelling, right? Like, there's always that question of like, are you writing about the future or are you
Mhm.
writing about now with
Right.
the aesthetics of the future, right? And again, I don't think either is good or bad intrinsically. It's just sort of like the inherent nature of how science fiction as a genre tends to be constructed.
Right.
And I think for me, that's kind of like why Edgerunners hit me the way it did. Is like, I mean, you know, it's just a lot of like, you know, it's the times we live in. You know, it's the thoughts that kind of percolate in our head in this given like this specific
Uh-huh.
you know
Late
place
stage
we find
capitalism.
ourselves in 2022 and now 2023.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
Maybe
you know,
even more specific than that, though, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's
we
like-
keep joking. We keep joking about how we're
Uh-huh.
in the worst cyberpunk future as we're dealing with like NFTs and like, you know, whatever horrible
right.
AI generated stuff and like,
And I think that's why I am so attached. Like, again, like, you know, to compare and contrast the two, right? Like, you know, whereas like Akudama Drive is primarily concerned with like the machinations of the police state. Like, I think the thing I kind of love about Edgerunners is, I know I keep saying it, but it's mundane cruelty, right? The apathy
Mhm.
of how its systems operate, right?
Right.
Like, just
Corporations will come
yeah,
with more and more
grinding
ways to
people
extract
like
value
meat,
from you, and
you know?
when you have no more value, you are of no value to them. Right. Like,
Exactly, right? And it's like, and just the ways in which that drives everybody's actions in Edgerunners, right? Like, you know, like Lucy's desire to go to the moon is
Like this
treated
pie in
as
the
like this
sky,
truly
like-
like by multiple people, right? Like this, as this truly like special personal goal. When on some level, the thing that's actually unique about it in the context of Cyberpunk is just, oh, it's a goal that's not explicitly angled
Right.
towards personal profit, right? It is a true, actual dream,
Right.
something driven by a part of her on the inside that still makes her human. And I think that is why David rallies behind that dream so much and makes it his dream, is because I don't want to say he's like a fundamentally hollow person, but by the end of the show, he kind of is, right?
Yeah.
Like he has nothing but like he makes Lucy's dream his dream because he has nothing else, because he was never given a chance to dream of anything else.
Yeah.
And
I think just looping back to the Lucy bit, like,
yeah,
again, we're talking about the strength of a good ending. I do absolutely love the ending to this.
it's so good.
It's
the whole,
pretty damn dark.
yeah, it's pretty dark, but I kind of love it.
Oh yeah, no, like again, that's not a criticism. I think it's a fantastic ending.
Yeah, and like the commitment to that ending, you know. Like,
there's no, there's no happy ending in this. It's very. It's
still
a tough
can't
pill
believe
to swallow.
the fucking driver is the only one who survived. What's his name?
So good. It's so great. Like of all the possible characters,
and
he's an old west looking ass.
I know
that just that final shot of Lucy at the moon.
Yeah,
at the tourist trap moon.
The shitty corporate moon.
Right, like it's some real like it's almost like, again, I don't think it's actually intentional, but if anybody was thinking of it at the time, it would be a Maishi. There's almost like that feeling of like when Fry goes to the moon in Futurama for the first time, and it's become a fucking tourist trap Disneyland
and, like,
attraction.
not even a good one.
It's
It's
on the
like
moon,
super
like
shitty
animatronics.
backwater, right?
It's like there's that feeling with there's like totally that kind of feeling in like Lucy's arrival on the moon, right? Is like this is
right,
what
except
the love
they're
of my
playing
life
it for tragedy rather than
yeah,
comedy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this
Just
is what
take
the
me to
love
the
of my
county
life
fair.
died
Ooh.
to achieve for me. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but it's so perfect for the ending of that series. But
and kind of, to push back against my own earlier criticism, I think that, with the best will in the world, Imishi is perhaps not the biggest kind of like themes and concepts guy, but he is a very good feelings and people director. He really tends onto his characters, and I think that's what makes Cyberpunk work more than anything else, is that he's invested in the characters in the center of the mayhem. And he really and obviously all the writers and animators as well, but there is a real attachment to the humans at the center there, and I think that is his strength as a director, and I think he played to that strength in this situation.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk
and Maishi
Sex
turn
and
out
Violence
to
and
be
Mock
peanut
Speed.
butter and jelly.
Very surprising. Very surprising.
Yeah. And hey, you know what? Just has nothing to do with the show itself, really. But hey, you know what? Shout outs to Trigger fighting so hard to keep Rebecca in the show.
Yeah.
Apparently,
are they going to cut her?
Apparently, the story goes that initially CDPR was like, you can't have a character like that in a Cyberpunk anime. And Trigger was like, says you.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Like, she's staying in the story.
This feels a lot like the Suburaya please do not do lewd fan art of our characters, sell body pillows thing all over again.
Yeah, right. But it's
good.
Just
yep.
They pulled it off.
Probably it gets Cyberpunk better than the game it's adapting got Cyberpunk.
Yes.
Yep. For sure. All right. Well,
it's over.
That's it. 2022 is done.
Our fine
list is over.
A fine selection of anime. I think it's fair to say.
Yes, a lot of good shows on here. So,
boy,
ready to do it all over again, guys.
Hell yeah! I can't wait for the upcoming season, which is bound to be full of high quality
if
stuff.
you like Isekai,
oh god, yeah, get ready for the Isekai Revenge next.
Iro, if you've
Of
ever
course,
read any of
Solon,
my
yes,
work,
naturally.
you know that I love
me.
Isekai. Indeed. Yes.
All right. Well, let's wrap things up with our housekeeping then. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com, where you can read our post and everybody else's thoughts on these shows and all of our other very Glorio 2022 year-end posts where we each individually sum up something about 2022 that was interesting or important to us. So check those out. We're still on Twitter at the Glorio blog. Also on co-host at Glorio. And you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube. You can like, comment,
Tell us what
subscribe,
you think the top 10 are.
ring that
Yep.
notification bell. Tell us what your top 10. Yes, tell us what your top 10 would be.
Yeah, let us know if we missed anything in our top 10.
Honor.
Yeah, between that and our honorable mentions.
Anything. I think we objectively, definitively spoke to every good, worthwhile anime that aired in 2022.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really anything else worth mentioning. But if by any chance something maybe didn't show up here,
please feel free
Maybe
to write in
remind
so
us.
we can tell you how wrong you are.
Thanks for another year.
We love you all. Yes. So
we do love you all.
That will do it then. So tell your friends, tell your enemies. We'll catch everybody next time.